Yep.
Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. It's Thursday, March the 30th, and I'm joined today by Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com, and we got two free picks in the final four games between FAU and San Diego State and Miami and UConn. And before we get to that, Doug, how are you?
Well, I'm doing great. Look at my shirt, Ross. I mean,
The
it's opening.
Cubbies.
It's opening day. So it's fun day, and and the Cubs are right over here to my left is they're head 4-0, bottom of the eighth against Milwaukee at home. And so hey, you can't win them all, Ross, unless you win the first one, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's especially when it comes to baseball.
Exactly. Well, it's your favorite time of year, and we appreciate you stepping away for a moment because I know how excited you were with opening day upon us today, and
Absolutely.
to step aside and spend some time with us and discuss the Final Four. And boy, oh boy, you look at the four teams that are left here in the Final Four, and to me, it's a bit exciting, okay, because you got an FAU, San Diego State, and Miami teams all in the Final Four for the first time in program history. And then UConn, who's been there, been a stalwart over the last 30 years or so of periodically getting to the Final Four on occasions, have won it all, as a matter of fact. Latest, if I recollect correctly, the latest national championship they won was with Kevin Ollie as their head
in his
coach.
first year.
Yeah, and he's since had a hard time finding a job, didn't last too long thereafter at UConn. But in any event, Doug, I don't know if you share the same sentiment, but it's nice to see some new blood in the Final Four, and not the atypical, with no pun intended, blue bloods in there. So, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as a basketball fan, I think it's delightful. Okay, I think it's great. I think it's wonderful to see different teams. But from a business standpoint, it's not great. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, CBS has already said they expect this to be one of the worst Final Fours. Okay, in terms of viewing, because of what you just said, though, the blue bloods. And by the way, speaking of blue bloods, why isn't Connecticut one? Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that what they've won, what is it, three or four national? I know it's at least three. I'm thinking it's four, but it might be three national championships in the last 25, 30 years.
Yeah, that would qualify,
how
right?
does that not qualify
Yeah,
you to be in there?
yeah,
Okay. They've won more in whenever their first one was than what Kansas has won, than any number of these other programs. So yeah, they absolutely should be considered that, and it should be promoted in that way. But so yeah, we got a fascinating matchup though. That first game, the one you're going to talk about with FAU and San Diego State, we don't know enough about, even you and I know enough about these teams other than the fact that we know that they're good.
yeah.
Okay. And obviously they're really good. So I think it's fun from a basketball standpoint. Okay. And that's what makes it intriguing. For those that, if the casual person not going to be as interested, I get it, from
Yeah,
that standpoint.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun though.
Yeah, it's forced me to do a lot of cramming in my study, this NCAA tournament, because with the upsets and teams like Florida Atlantic advancing, and San Diego State, who's they've been consistently good over the last 20 years with Steve Fisher and Brian Dutcher, but they've never advanced beyond the Sweet 16. And then the Miami Hurricanes, who Jim Larinaga, you got to give him a lot of credit. And like you just said, UConn, why aren't they a blue blood? Because they seem to be right there amongst, as far as winning national championships, as good as any of the so-called blue bloods that we consider the top programs in America. So, yeah, there's a lot of intrigue involved. Well, let's get to that first game, Doug. Miami and UConn. Actually, it's the second game of the day. And right now, UConn is -5.5, 148. That will be the second game of the doubleheader, as I just alluded to. What's your take on this one, buddy? UConn -5.5. I thought that line was a little bit heavy, but then when I looked at it, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think it's accurate, but you know where I'm going to take my focus, Ross? I'm going to take it to the total. Yes, to the total
Okay.
for a change of pace here on this one. Last I looked, I saw 149.5. I don't know if you have that
I got
still.
149 right now.
Okay, so 149. Okay, that still works either way for me on that one. So, I mean, first of all, ACC co-champs, Miami. Okay, so that set the table. I know people thought, and if you follow that those net ratings, you know they didn't finish as high, the ACC, but obviously the ACC keeps sending teams to championship games. Okay, so that's not the league's not as poorly off as some people think. Connecticut, for the first third of the season, was the best team in college basketball. That was been proven even more so by how Purdue flamed out, and now they're favored to cut down the nets. Okay, on Monday night. Okay, from that standpoint, so the you got two excellent offensive teams here. They both average about 60 shots a game. Miami scores a little over 79. UConn is almost to 79 points. Now, Miami, for those not familiar, they deploy 4 guards. Now, truth be told, and I know you know this, Ross, the guys aren't really, they're not all guards because 2 of the guys are 6'5" and 6'7". Now, they have the game to be a guard. I'm not saying that, but you know they're more wing players from that standpoint, and they create matchup problems for the opposing teams. Now, the Miami defense, they've held in this tournament, the first 3 teams they faced, 41%, 41.3% or lower. Now they gave up 50% to Texas. Okay, so that can be a little problematic, but that's kind of what they've done all year. They'll have a series of good games, and then they have kind of an off game. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if they play a little better defensively, especially having a full week of preparation. Now the Huskies, they are excellent on defense. They only give up a little over 40%, 64.4 points per game. They have the size in the paint, they have the quickness on the perimeter, and they can take away what opposing teams like to do. Here's a really good number that I found. 2-point defense on the season, Kentucky is 14th in the country. 3-point defense, 13th. Now I'm talking about shooting percentages. When I say that, those are 2 excellent numbers, and that just goes to show you the strength of the teams. Now,
yeah, you said Kentucky. You meant UConn.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did I say Kentucky?
Yeah,
I meant to say Connecticut.
Because believe me, we've gone through this yesterday.
Yeah,
somebody will jump all over that, Doug.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's Connecticut Huskies. Yeah. Let's just clear on that. And so I think both teams have a chance to score 70 points, and I wouldn't be surprised if they both did, but I don't think it's going to go over 147. And then in this one, Miami is 6-0 under after in away games after scoring 75 or more points in 3 straight games. And the Huskies of Connecticut, okay, in away games, they are 7-1 under after covering the spread 3 or more times in games. So Ross, that 149 you mentioned, I'm saying go under the total, despite how these teams score points. But I think the defenses will be good enough, and whether it be nerves or other things that will come up in this game, I think it'll end up just a couple points shy of where it is right now.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. Look, UConn in their 4 NCAA tournament games this year, and you touched upon this briefly, but specifically the 4 NCAA tournament games, they allowed less than 60 points per game. And they held opponents to 35.4% shooting. Now, they've also, all 4 of them games, they won handily. They've been dominant throughout the tournament. Look, Miami comes in 3 wins in a row. Their last 3 wins in the NCAA tournament, I should say, against really good teams. Number 2 seed Texas, number 1 seed Houston. They also knocked off Indiana. And their offense in those 3 games, they're averaging 87.3 points per game and shooting 52.5% from the field. I do think that they're going to be up against a whole different animal right now. I know Houston and Texas were pretty good defensive teams. Houston actually was excellent defensively all year, but they exposed them. But I just think this UConn team, they're just playing with such swagger on both sides of the ball. And the only thing that would scare me about taking UConn here, Miami's been a real good underdog this year. As a matter of fact, 9-1 ATS and 7-3 straight up in their last 10 as a dog. And that includes all year long as an underdog of 3.5 or greater. They've gone 5-0 against the spread and 4-1 straight up. So they've been a real good dog in this situation. And if they're going to cover as a dog in this one, they're going to have to play some defense, because they're not going to, in my estimation, are not going to put up 75 to 80 points in this game. It ain't going to happen. UConn is too good defensively. So I agree with you, Doug, on the under 149. So Miami, UConn under 149 for Mr. Doug Upstone. All right, I'm going to look at FAU and San Diego State. Doug, that's the early game that tips off at 6:09, not 6:08, not 6:10, but 6:09. So don't miss that, Doug. In any event, San Diego State is a 3-point favorite. The total in this game is 131.5. San Diego State, red hot right now. They've won 8 in a row. But here's the big thing. If you're not aware of it already, this is an excellent defensive team from San Diego State. During this 8-game win streak, they've allowed less than 56 points per game and a little over 35% shooting. That's through an 8-game period of time. And, you know, that's not shocking when you consider the fact that according to KenPom, they're number 4 nationally in adjusted defensive efficiency and number 2 in 3-point percentage defense at 27.8% for the year. Now, that's FAU. One of FAU's strengths is their ability to knock down to 3. They're around between 36 and 37%, which is pretty damn good in college basketball. But as I alluded to, San Diego State knows how to defend the perimeter. FAU, by the way, Doug, not bad defensively either. Number 30 nationally in defensive efficiency. Again, San Diego State, by the way, folks, 12-0 to the under in their last 12 games and 14-1 to the under in their last 15. And if you're familiar with San Diego State, it's not like they're going under with totals in the 140s and 150s. As a matter of fact, throughout that 12-game span where they've gone under on each occasion, the average total in those games, 136.5. So this team gets it done defensively. And, you know, and this applies to your game as well. With people sometimes overlook, especially in the first game of a Final Four, which first 2 games, which is a Final Four action. Let's put it that way. Teams go from playing in an arena suited for basketball to a football stadium, because nowadays you don't get a Final Four awarded to your city unless you have a monstrosity of a stadium to accompany in it. And NRG Stadium in Houston would qualify. As you well know, Doug, from playing some in your career, and myself as well, when you go into an environment like that, that's a bigger facility, and in this situation, a stadium, the depth perception of shooters gets greatly affected because the fans aren't as close to the action, especially behind the basket. And it's only human nature. You get affected when it comes to depth perception in those types of environments. FAU, San Diego State, Doug, under 131.5. And Doug likes the Miami and UConn game under 149. Any thoughts on my game, Doug?
Yeah, I think you're right on it from that standpoint. Among the things too is that, I mean, as good as Florida Atlantic is, they have not played a team not only, I don't think, as good defensively as them, but not as physical defensively. And that's one of the big strengths of San Diego State. And that's when I watched it must have been the Mountain West Championship. I had seen San Diego State play maybe a month or so earlier. And, you know, you mentioned the streak of unders that they're on. They weren't as good earlier defensively. So something clicked, okay, with this team that Jim Dutcher got them to do, and they just became who, they became the Aztecs that we were familiar with. And so because of that, I think that's going to really impact their ability to score, referring to the Owls in this case. And so, I mean, if you don't, like you're talking about, Ross, when you got somebody that is in your face and then they're also being able to bump you, okay, on a consistent basis, or they when you run screens and there's a guy right there, okay, that you're not used to seeing, that throws you off, and that takes a couple more seconds off the shot clock. Now you got to find somebody. So that tends to add up over time, okay, in games as well. So I agree, Ross. I think this looks like an under overall, because San Diego State will have lulls in scoring. We have seen that. So I think we're looking at a game probably in the, at best, 130 or 128, but probably more likely both teams are somewhere around in the low 60s.
Yeah, and San Diego State, the other thing, Doug, is they play at an extremely slow pace. They're in the bottom third of college basketball in terms of pace or tempo, which is measured by how many offensive possessions you get per 40 minutes of play. They're somewhere around 265. Don't quote me on this. The other thing I want to correct is I said Brian Dutcher earlier. It's Jim Dutcher. I don't want anybody to jump all over me because I get called 80 years old. I get called, and again, folks, you heard my rant yesterday. I'm not going to go on about it. If you want grammatically correct, go to ESPN. If you want a sports betting show that puts out winners, the guys I have assembled here, including myself, we've been doing that consistently now for the last 3 weeks at the most critical time of the college basketball season. So at the end of the day, if we pronounce a name, we pronounce a team wrong, we fail to get correct the nickname of a team, it's all water under the bridge. At the end of the day, criticize us if we're talking about that team and our analysis is not accurate. Then we have a problem. Okay. So until then, I do appreciate all the new subscribers out there, Doug. We've close to 300 new subscribers over the last 10 days. Just absolutely phenomenal. Folks, we cannot do this without you. And I know I could speak for Doug and Jesse and also Sean Higgs in saying we deeply appreciate all of you, not only the new subscribers, those of you who've been with us for a while. And if you haven't, take a second, just hit that subscribe button. There's an OSGA logo right in the bottom right-hand corner of the video. If you hover over that, a subscribe button will come up. Hit subscribe and hit your notification bell while you're there too, because that will notify you immediately upon any of our Winner's Circle sports betting podcasts going up on our network. And don't forget to give the guys a like. You keep calling us old, but we're picking winners like new spring chickens. So folks, give us a like. In any event, Doug, DocSports.com, you've been doing awful well there of late, and fill the folks in and what you may have coming up.
Yes, speaking of college basketball, which is the topic we're talking about, is that I had the winner that we had on the free pick on Monday ended up being a play of mine in what was one of the most unusual games of the entire college basketball season. But you know what? North Texas got it done. So that took me to 7-0 in recent college basketball picks. I am passing on the championship game because the two teams being from the same conference, I think just adds an element that is tough to try and figure out, especially because I think the spread and the total are right on. But so passing on that, but I'll be in action for sure on Saturday. I'm not sure when to have both games. Ross is already on record as saying he's going to have both games. And if he wants to, by the way, if he wants to backtrack that, he can. Okay. I won't hold him to that.
Thank you, sir. I wish everybody was as forgiving as you are.
But for sure, I'm going to have one game, okay, on that one. And I pretty much know what it's going to be. But so 7-0, $2,700 worth of profit based on that, based on units. So ready to go to finish out the college basketball season. And then NBA has continued to do extremely well, 26-13 long-term, 13-5 in a shorter term. That's been very good. Had a really good run hockey. Last two nights had an overtime loss and had a bad performance from another team. But so, that's going to happen. And of course, here we go. Okay, baseball. Okay, I'm excited. I'm fired up. I'm ready. And literally, as soon as I'm done here, I am out the door, heading to the local pub with some friends, and wings and beer are on the agenda.
Yeah.
So I can assure you that's going to be good stuff there. So, but no, baseball. I say my favorite sport. I make no bones about it. Anybody that knows me knows that's the case. And so I am ready for another big season. I closed last year extremely strong, 54 and 36. And the year before, I was a number one handicapper from Docs. 4 of my last 8 years and in doing this have been my best years. So of the 20 plus years, the 4 best have come in the last 8. So I got something figured out. It's working for me, and I'm looking just to continue that going forward, Ross.
And I think the folks out there should look forward to that as well. So if you want to make some money during baseball season, turn to Doug over at DocSports.com. That's a site that's been alive for 51 years, folks. And I'm going to repeat this now, and I'll repeat it again. Longevity speaks volumes in this industry. In 51 years, that's an awful long time to stay around. You must be doing something right. In any event, you could find me at rbwins.com. Folks, absolutely on fire. My NIT and college basketball plays combined 11-2. I was terrific during the Sweet 16 and also the Elite Eight, going 8-2. College basketball overall now 26-14 with my last 40, which is good for 65%. My college basketball totals continue to cash 46-25 with my last 71. That's good for 65%. College basketball 10-star top plays, which I'll have one of those on Saturday in the Final Four, 111-82, folks. 58% over my last 193. And dime bettors during that course of time made just a shade under $21,000. So a lot of good stuff, and just doesn't end with college basketball. All sports right now on a 14-5 over my last 19, 33-20 over my last 53. Again, rbwins.com, where I guarantee my selections on single game, multi-game packages, or just subscription plans. If you don't make a profit, you don't win. I will credit your account back the exact amount of your purchase price. And you could use that credit any which way you like toward any future purchase at any time. Doug, always a pleasure. We'll be back with you on Monday. Enjoy your day out with your friends, and don't just stick to beer. Get some of that hard stuff in you. You're a lot more entertaining when that happens. And for Ross Benjamin and my friend Doug Upstone, one of the finest handicappers in the country, don't forget Doug, DocSports.com, me, rbwins.com. We like to wish each and every one of you all the very best, folks. Don't forget, give us a like. Take care, and God bless.